Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cherry the Geek TV. I'm Joe Vanourney. Today we are chatting with Mike Gunton. He is the creative director of Factual and the Natural History Unit for BBC Studios. He's a multiple BAFTA and Emmy Award winner whose credits include Planet Earth 2, Dynasties, and Prehistoric Planet. And he is now the executive producer of a brand new 10-episode nature docuseries narrated by Tom Hanks called The Americas. First episode aired on NBC on Sunday, February 23rd, and are available to stream the following day on Peacock. Mike, thanks for chatting with us today on Cherry the Geek TV. Congratulations on this series. What an epic nature docuseries this is. I'm sure there's very difficult and time consuming to make. Talk about what were the biggest challenges in putting this thing together.
The biggest challenge is that it is an enormous place. And one of the appeals of doing the series was simply because of the scale and the variety and the diversity of habitats and animals on that place. So the biggest challenge is that every time you go and do a film, go and shoot something, it's an expedition. It's effectively like a filming expedition, and every single one has to be bespoke for that habitat, that animal, that location. And so you can't. There's no one size fit all. So it's the logistics team on this series. I don't know how they did it. It's extraordinary. And I've done a lot of these shows, and I think this is by far the most challenging one that I've worked on in terms of the range of logistics.
I've seen the first two episodes of The Americas. Absolutely fascinating and awesome. I was wondering if you could compare putting together different segments, right? So, like in the first hour of the Atlantic coast, you have a segment on the cicadas. In the second hour, the Mexico show, you have a segment on orcas and dolphins. I'm assuming that the production scale of producing those two segments are vastly different, but I was wondering if you could walk me through that. How much is difference in the pre-planning? How much difference in the scale and the actual production? How many days, weeks, months does it take to get that final footage?
I'm going to just rewind a tiny bit because how you end up with that variety of sequences. So when you're trying to tell the story of this entire supercontinent, there are millions of stories you could tell. So you have to make your selection right at the front, and that's like casting in a movie. You start off with a whole load of filters. You want scary stories. You want emotional. You do it from a sort of feel, scary, brave, funny. Then you say, well, actually, there's another set of filters, which is what type of behavior, courtship behavior, hunting behavior, mating behavior, nest building behavior, whatever it is. So that's another set of filters. Then you have a kind of an animal type filter. Big, charismatic orca, as you say, little bugs, furry, nice, cute bear cubs. Another set of filters. Then another one is newness. Has anybody seen this before? And anyway, so you have your 100 or 500 ideas, and you start jiggling them around until those filters, and eventually out of that, 100 or so will stack. All those filters will stack in perfect position, and then you say, right, that's the story we're going to go for. So the reason why the cicadas was we wanted to tell a story that was in your backyard, was about an epic journey, but of a bug. Also something that was completely weird, that it spends 17 years underground as a little cocoon, and then it spends 3 days above ground. It just blows your mind. Then at the other end of the orca, one of the most powerful predators on the planet. How does it behave? Intelligent. How is it used? So do you mean, do you see what I mean? That's how you choose those. Now, when it comes to the logistics of it, still you'd be surprised how similar they are actually. But one is, we're going to be shooting this in about 15 square feet. And one of them, we're going to be shooting in 15 square miles of ocean. One of them means we're going to have to hire a boat and film and boat crews for a month. And the dollar meter's going brrr. Whereas the other one was saying, well, we can do this. We know these things are coming out on this day. I mean, it's still not cheap, but do you know what I mean? It's a slightly less scary scale of resource costs. The difference is that the photography of the with the cicadas has to be incredibly carefully planned because they're very difficult to film because they're tiny, and to make them feel anything other than just a buggy, horrible buggy thing, to make them feel epic is quite challenging photographically. Orcas, they're just epic. So, they kind of do their own epic for you.
Mike, I'm wondering, out of all the animals that you feature on the Americas, do you have a favorite?
Yes, but ask me tomorrow and it'll be a different one. But today, my favorite is the burrowing owl, the little male burrowing owl in um, San Marco in Florida. Do you know that? Have you seen? You probably haven't seen the story, but I'm going to quickly tell you the story because I think it's emblematic of the series as well. So these little burrowing owls, their natural habitat is on the grass plains because they need this short grass, which is kept really short by the grazing animals like the bison. They've moved and migrated into gardens in Florida because the people who mow their lawns so enthusiastically keep the grass super short, and it makes the perfect habitat for these owls. And it's quite sandy soil, so they can make their burrows. Now the males dig these burrows in the hope of enticing a female, and they're very cute. They're about this sort of height. They're only about this sort of height, and they build these burrows very proudly, and they stand on the burrows. And they go, "Woo, woo, wait!" This lovely sort of little slightly bouncing thing, and they with their wings, and they call these woo woo call, and the females as they fly by get attracted in, and they come and if they get lucky, get mate with them. Our story, when we join our story, there's lots of these owls all over the place, and they're all paired off, and they're all loving, and are actually quite loving. They put their wings around each other. There's one male who's sitting there forlornly, going, ooh, ooh, ooh. No females, and he's looking, and he literally looks depressed. And then we spend the next couple of minutes, day in, day out, and then we have time lapse of the sun coming up, the moon coming up, traffic going past, people delivering the newspapers, day after day after day, cut back to him, nothing happens. Eventually, just as it's about to give up hope, he suddenly looks up and hears a female flying over, and he goes into sort of hyperdrive, and this female circles and comes and lands on the lawn about 20 feet from him, and she looks at him, and he looks at her, and she looks back at him, and then she does this big wink, and then the course of true love comes together, and he gets the girl. Now you can imagine Tom Hanks telling that story. It's like Sleepless in Seattle, and that's my favorite animal today.
We just heard your favorite animal story. I'm going to piggyback off that and ask, what was your favorite episode? You have 10 episodes of the Americas. What was your favorite region and why? And if you had 12 hours instead of 10, what are the regions that you wish you had time to explore more?
Well, I think in the end, I'm about to go there next week, in 2 weeks' time. The Andes, because I didn't know anything about the Andes, and I thought of the Andes as being just a kind of a big mountain with nothing, maybe a few bears and maybe a few puma, and the variety of habitats and stories from that place, including that frog that freezes itself to death. It basically goes into suspended animation every night, and then frozen solid as a block, and then reanimates itself every day. That's extraordinary. The Atacama Desert that I think I might have mentioned earlier. There's an extraordinary salt flat lizard that does this incredible courtship and fight. It's just full of stories I'd never heard of, and it's a brutally wild place, and it feels like one of the last wildernesses. So I think that's amazing place. In terms of other places, I would have liked to have done another story in South America. I probably would have liked to have done. I would have liked to have split the Amazon. We kind of do the Amazon and the Pantanal as kind of one show. I think I would have split that in half because the Pantanal is the most amazing wetlands. And then I probably would have tried to find something in Central America. I mean, Costa Rica is, I don't know if you know Costa Rica, an incredible part of the world, and probably would have done something in that sort of area because I would have quite liked to have spun in some of those ancient, the Mayan Aztec civilizations, because they had some really interesting relationships with nature. Yeah.
Well, it's a wonderful series. It's called The Americas. First episodes air on NBC Sunday, February 23rd, and are available to stream the following day on Peacock. Mike, thanks so much for chatting with us today on Cherry the Geek TV.